So let me see what the very first thing is that we're talking about here. I have a credit card that has been with me too long. When I am watching videos, I hear expense cards. What is that? When I hear expense cards and lines, are they different? No, I always use the PLOC or the HELOC first. Why? Why do I always use the PLOC or HELOC first? Because the PLOC, the HELOC, the BLOC, those lines can be used for all income in and all expenses out. Okay, a credit card can only be used for chargeable expenses, right? So it's just important to know that the lines are just a little bit different in the credit card and the personal line or the home equity line of credit. So if you have another line of credit that is not a credit card, I personally would start with that line, because if you have a $10,000 line of credit and you have $5,000 a month that you make, even if this line of credit is to the limit, every dime that you make should go in here to reduce this line of credit. And when it reduces it, of course, it cuts back the interest charges. If you don't give the parasite interest something to feed on, then it can't feed and increase. So we cut this line down to stop that interest just a little bit. Then all of your expenses can be paid right back out of this line. So that's why I start with any kind of home equity personal line, BLOC business line, just so that you're able to use all income in and all expenses out. The credit card can only use chargeable expenses. So you have to figure out what living expenses that you have that are chargeable, such as your food, grocery stores, restaurants, all of that's chargeable. The gas for your car is chargeable. Your car insurance is usually chargeable. Subscriptions, my alarm system. I can go on and on of things that are chargeable. So you need that list of living expenses so you know how to handle your credit cards. When I call them expense cards, the only reason that I do that is I've kind of flipped the verbiage a little bit, that we go from the credit card that we're stressed out about turns into an expense card that we just use because it's convenient. So when you use any kind of credit card, and let's say that, let me start with how mine started. Okay, so I had a credit limit of 1,000 or 1,200, I can't remember, and it was so stressful to me because it was like $1,200. Oh my gosh. Even though I had a mortgage and everything, these credit cards stressed me out because I had to pay that stupid monthly payment, I thought, every month. But when I learned that I could use it as an expense card, even though I had a $1,200 balance, I just took $1,200 of my income and put into here and then charged out my food, which let's say was $1,000 a month. Charged out my car insurance, I believe it was, that I put on here, that was $200 a month. It was so easy. My credit score zoomed because I learned how to use these two little small cards that I have. So it doesn't matter if you have a $30,000 credit card or if you have a $500 credit card. Learn how to use it as an expense card, and that alone is going to help you to manage them better. So when you're talking about doing the chunks, let me be very clear. They are cutting limits. I've been saying that since the end of last year, probably. When you do a chunk onto a credit card that has been at the limit, or you have been kind of abusing that way, keeping it up there, maybe you haven't done anything wrong, and maybe you've been making your payments on time, but they see that you've got a big balance or a halfway big balance. They don't care. When they see the chunk go in, the computer obviously gets triggered. So they have something set up that when they see a chunk go into a credit card right now, just some companies, I know I've heard Citi, I think I heard Chase yesterday. Was it Chase I heard yesterday? I believe it was Chase. I know Synchrony has done it a lot, that when you put in $1,000, they'll cut it down $1,000. Okay. So be careful with that right now. You can get by with it if I was going to do 1,200 today, I would do 50, 50, 50. I would do something breaking up payments throughout the month so that, I'm stopping them from cutting my limits because they're not getting a big chunk and then they're just going to cut it down. Okay. So kind of just do 20 here, 50 there, 100 there, 2 or 3 times a week until you get up to the amount that you're wanting to use in the month, and protect your credit, because we don't want your limits cut. One, that hurts your credit score. And two, it's aggravating as heck when you were planning on living on that money and they stole it from you. I literally consider that stealing, because we have an amount that is ours to use. And when they decide that just because you were a good person, you're a good person by taking care of your credit. And when you put in $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, they should be happy that you paid your bill. But that's kind of like I said, I feel like they're stealing, because it's like, wait a minute, you just took my money. So just be careful with that. Let's talk about how we're going to use this line. Let's talk about the $30,000 credit card that somebody mentioned here. So we have a $30,000 balance on this card. Okay, so let's say that she makes $5,000 a month, and let's say that her food expense, her food cost $1,000. Her gas for the car, let's say it is $200 a month. We're going to say her, let's say, car insurance. Let's say that it is $200 a month, and let's just end there. So that's $1,400 a month. And let's say that maybe she's got a cash flow of $300 a month. Maybe she doesn't have a cash flow at all, but let's act like she's got a cash flow of $300, which means that she would put $1,700 into this credit card for her expenses and for her cash flow. But we could also add the $650 payment that she already makes. Okay, so if she's doing 1,000, then that tells me that she does have about $300 a month in cash flow, right? So I'm kind of putting it all together here. So the income would go in to the $30,000 balance that she already has. Now remember, she would want to divide this up into payments right now so she doesn't get a cut. Okay, so $27,650 would be her approximate balance after she puts this in. Then her $1,400 would come back out throughout the month. Now that means that the $650, that her payment that she was just making on this card, that was doing no damage because she has interest, and the $300 extra are now going to sit in here working the balance down every month. So she's going to add this back in. So she's at $29,050. So you can see the reduction. She didn't do anything different. She's still putting in the payment. She's still putting in, or she's now putting in the expenses into this expense card. And she's putting cash flow that she has that she was already putting in right here anyway. Okay. So as the expenses come back out, and let's say that she has 25% interest on this card. So let's say she has $600 in interest. That's ridiculous, isn't it? So $29,650. Okay, so if we went through all of this to reduce her interest and to put in the extra cash flow, so you've got 30,000, 29,650, $350 is all that this is going to be going down every month. But it's going down now. With her making the $650 payment, it was going up. Even with her adding the $300 to the $900 was bringing it down a little bit. But looky here, the interest on this thing is blowing it up. So the best case scenario when you have something such as this that's eating you up with interest is to get a line of credit and start chunking that big interest rate down. But this is going to keep the balances coming down until she gets to the point that she's going to throw it into a line of credit, or at least throw some of it. If she can get some of this balance off of that interest rate, it's going to help her. That is where we get in trouble right there with credit cards. They give us these huge limits on any kind of line of credit. It is going to be hard to keep up with because of this interest charge. Okay. But when you have a first lien HELOC, for example, that has your whole mortgage in it, you have all of your income going in there, your mortgage interest has been cut off. So that's how it benefits putting the mortgage into a line of credit. because you're cutting off that, 40, 50, 120% interest that they're putting on those mortgages, and you're turning it into a 7% interest. So totally different. I mean, that's a big, wonderful change. This right here, when you're running over 20% on a credit card, these big balances will get you if you're not really throwing a lot of money into these, okay? Once you come out of that, don't ever let this balance get up like this again. I'm all about credit cards. I love them, and I have at least 10 because I believe in keeping credit, but I want them paid off every month, okay? Because I don't want this to happen.